Corey Lewandowski. Corey, great to have you in-house. This was not something I expected to be talking about Monday and Tuesday, but as you get closer to elections, things can happen that can have huge impacts on an election. And I feel like Donald Trump and the campaign clearly grasped the severity of this issue. Where is Kamala Harris? Where is the vice president?
Well, this is the difference about talking about being a leader and being a leader. Look, this is a national tragedy. People don't truly understand. I know it's been covered now fairly extensively, but people don't truly understand how long it's going to take to rebuild these communities. The community of Asheville, North Carolina, Donald Trump in Georgia yesterday. Don't forget, the city of Tampa absolutely crushed by this hurricane. I have lived through a hurricane, Hurricane Ian 2 years ago, that devastated Southwest Florida. It takes years for these communities to recover. And what you need, particularly at the front end, is you need people who care. They bring you the supplies, right? A lot of these communities don't even have electricity still. Yeah. Donald Trump called Elon Musk, said, bring in Starlink. Get these communities up and running so they can communicate with their loved ones. It's going to take a long time to recover. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have done nothing to help these people. It's going to be reflected. I don't want to make this political, but it will be reflected at the ballot box, because when you are in your time of need the most, you look to those leaders who come to you and say, what can we do to help? That's why we saw Donald Trump in Georgia yesterday.
And you see the contrast between the two. You saw Kamala Harris on stage at this event in Las Vegas offering up thoughts and prayers. What do you see Donald Trump doing? You see him flying to Georgia, and you see within just a few hours he launched that GoFundMe campaign, which has now raised almost $1.7 million in less than 24 hours. He's doing something on the ground. We haven't seen anything from this administration.
Well, that's right. And listen, I traveled with Donald Trump all weekend. We were consistently talking to the elected officials in their respective communities. Some of them said, hey, please wait. We're not ready to have you come in. We don't want to be a distraction. We're still in the rescue mission phase of this. But when we talked to the people in Georgia, they said, this is the right community to come to at this time. I can assure you Donald Trump's going to be in North Carolina on Thursday of this week. He's going down, on Friday of this week. And so he's going to continue to make sure that the people of the communities have the resources they need. It would be different if he was in the White House, but as a private citizen, he's doing everything he possibly can to help these families recover as quickly as possible.
That is such a good point. And to me, at least the optic is that Donald Trump, he doesn't have the power of the federal government behind him right now. He may after Election Day. We'll find out in 35 days. But he is at least, look, he's got a GoFundMe right now. He's raised more than $2 million. People might say, okay, that's not a ton of money right now. Think about after those wildfires in Hawaii. The federal government, Joe and Kamala, gave the citizens out there in Maui $700 apiece. That's enough for what? A couple weeks of groceries, okay?
If you're
Last week, we give Ukraine $8 billion. That's what President Zelensky left with as he made his way back to Ukraine. Kamala now, and this is a pattern. So you think about Waukesha, Wisconsin. Donald Trump's been there. You think about East Palestine, Ohio. He wasn't president. Donald Trump's been there. Hawaii, Kamala didn't visit Maui. All right? Think about the Al Smith dinner. She skipped that. Benjamin Netanyahu was in town a couple months ago. She skipped that, too. Here we've got a crisis affecting, by the way, largely Trump areas of the country. A lot of these rural populations tend to be Trump voters. Kamala, here we are 5 days out. She's not there. 2 days after Superstorm Sandy, 2012, Barack Obama's on the ground in New Jersey because he knew it was political and he knew it mattered. He was there.
Listen, whether you agree or disagree with the politics of the region, it doesn't matter. You put politics aside when people are hurting. This has been devastating. People's lives, everything they've ever owned, gone. We've seen over 100 dead in this tragedy so far. And for the lack of leadership we're seeing out of Washington, D.C., it just reminds me that people don't turn to Washington, D.C. for solutions because they don't provide any. They want people like Donald Trump, a private individual who has business acumen and success, to come in and solve the problem. And what that means yesterday was bringing water and supplies to the people who most need it, because potable water, drinking water is so critical right now, because anybody who's ever been through a hurricane or had these storms hit their homes, the water is part of it. But when that water recedes, the smell, the sewage, the devastation that remains behind, if your home even exists, basically most of these homes, unfortunately, will have to be just completely razed to the ground, start all over again. It's going to take, probably a decade potentially to recover, and my heart goes out to these people. I know what it's like. It's so hard, but having leaders that care about you is important.
You were down there in South Florida, Fort Myers. Right. If it does come back, because this Helene affected that part of the coast as well. I know that Naples and Fort Myers, a little bit south of Tampa Bay and certainly the Big Bend, but to your point, it can take a decade plus for communities to recover from something
if they
like
ever
this.
recover, because a lot of people just say, look, we're out, we can't rebuild here, we can't afford it. And because of the way the insurance premiums work, the time it takes to deal with your insurance companies, one of the networks had a big story this week on the insurance companies who are just denying claims, just summarily saying, you paid into these premiums for years, and these poor people in North Carolina and in Georgia and in Florida are going to have to put those insurance claims in. It may take years to ever get their money back.